Don't jinx it.
They won.
Oh. Did you show up now?
I'm still trying to log in. I ain't gonna let you.
You get your fast login then.
Yeah, I scanned that, but
The password is
I'm
fast.
just typing in that long email to get you.
Yeah. Remember where to put the dots at, that's my problem. I had it on my iPad where I kept up with it. This time I asked me for it again. Dang
Okay, we are live.
it. We're gonna wait till 6 to start.
Yes.
Hurt coming?
Have you seen?
That worked.
You did good. Okay.
Thank you.
I did absolutely nothing.
Or what?
Since we have to do blue pins tonight, I just brought a couple.
Thank you.
Oh, hey,
My
Dakota.
son delivered don't have attachments. Normally
Do
does.
it. I changed it from the word attachments to documents, and so it should show up as documents. Hey, Dakota, go ahead and stretch your hands out because you're gonna be signing a lot tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah, you doing it.
get them all.
Signatures are gonna look great towards the end.
Drift off the paper.
Yeah. That's one I like. You ever seen that Donald Trump signature? Just bunch of zigzags up and down.
I'll let you in.
That's what mine.
Wiggle, 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 wiggle.
That's how it gets to be.
You didn't tell me. You didn't have to tell why, did it?
Huh?
Yeah, I started mine.
Oh, yeah?
Signature partner dropped out.
That was all you needed?
My dad, he just did C2, C squared, because he's Charles Carter, so he just did C squared.
Two or 3 weeks over here.
Yeah, like my mom and dad. Let's go, got beautiful signatures. This was more of
Are
a
they playing in Austin?
flowing script.
My dad does. My dad like chicken scratch. My mother, like you said, it's just a family.
Yeah, just
We're gonna do it right this year.
which dad, he's left-handed. And, most left-handed people,
Carter, when did they start?
they smear the.
What time did they start?
I think he figured it out.
Credit card. The guy.
Said I'll try to pay attention next time. I didn't think we were gonna be here, but they don't allow, they ain't allowing.
Last deal.
Oh, really?
They've had, like, we were supposed to play them last week and they canceled because they had it.
Right.
It's pretty good down there. And then they got released. So we're going back through the conference. This was the midway through conference.
Upside down?
Plan on that. We already knew they weren't allowed. We found out last week.
You do that. I mean, it looked just like you.
Wow.
It's perfect.
I can read upside down and make sure you can't write upside down.
It's always, it's been that way in baseball. And softball. So you're in a combined district. So they do that because of
Yeah.
That is not me. Because you take it, you look at it, you're actually gonna turn it over and cut it this way.
Yeah.
All you get is the 180 within the district, and that's how you retire regardless of.
Won't allow you to just measure it,
But.
and tell it.
District captains, so everyone-
Instead of what throw it up there.
That's right. I'd be curious.
Once you finally get it stuck up there, it's second nature, but it's that initial, backwards,
His
forwards.
son always tell me, he said, "By the way, don't worry, he's gonna burn
I just lost audio.
We were talking about you, and we turned it on mute.
No wonder the ears burned.
That's part of the symptoms. It's
I was gonna say, is that a symptom?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
Stop there. We don't get home. Yeah, it's been a long one.
We're gonna take a break. Go here in Martinsburg. Get them all signed. Then Blackbird's gonna go over everything, stamp everything, whatnot, we'll go back to the regular meeting.
Sounds good. Whenever your clock says 6 feet.
You're sure the herd ain't coming, I don't wanna lose him out. You didn't lock the door, didn't you?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, we'll put that chain on that door. About protocol.
Misunderstand that deliver. What was the one? That guy took over superintendent one of them.
Oh, you're talking about, are you talking about,
Not standing.
Lean on Me?
Lean on me. He changed.
Crazy Joe?
Yep.
Crazy Joe, yeah. Keep that better.
Keep the drug dealers out of his school.
I watch that every year before school starts. Every year.
That's a good motivation. Brad, you should have been a teacher in the 80s. You could take them out the hallway. Get to some of that know-how.
Stress, this is 6 o'clock.
All right, you're going to push it. We're done. Get a little wording around here. All right, 6 o'clock. I hereby call this special meeting of the Board of Trustees of Roby Consolidated Independent School District. Today is January 28th, 2021. The time is now 6. I verify we have a quorum of board members present either in person or through video conference software in accordance with provisions of Texas Open Meetings Act. Mr. Carter, you verify that we're in compliance with provisions of Texas Open Meetings Act regarding the notice of this meeting.
We are in compliance.
Mr. Edmondson, would you please bring us invocation, sir?
Yes, sir. Father, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for the life that you give us. We thank you for Roby. We thank you for the school district. Thank you for the men and those that are involved that you've put in this position to steward the life here. And Lord, that you would just guide us and direct us, Lord, as we look at ways to impart and give opportunities to the next generation. And so, Father, just guide us. We need your help. We don't know everything. So give us insight and lead us as we make decisions about where we're going and what we need to do, Lord. We just thank you for being with us. In Jesus' name, amen.
So the roll call, I need to say that all is present and one is through teleconference.
Yes, correct.
Quorum and all set. Do we have any public?
We do not.
None at this time. So I guess we'll move into the regular agenda.
Yes, sir.
Topic A is consider to take action to order authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of Roby Consolidated Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2021. Authorizing the amount, the interest rates, price, redemption, provisions, and terms thereof, and certain other procedures, provisions related thereto, and containing other matters related thereto. So,
And then, yes, and then trustees, we have John Blackburn here with Live Oak Finance to go over this item with us.
So you should have a final numbers packet there.
Kevin, yours, if you'll look in your document on your board book, under this item, you will have what they are referring to tonight. Okay.
As promised, a long time ago, if you hung with me, we would get to a point where you guys got to sell bonds and start your project. We've had a few obstacles since then with postponed elections and everything else. But here we are today. We went into the market this morning. We went in about 9 o'clock for about an hour-long order period, 9 to 10. You have a copy of the final numbers there in front of you from the bond sale. Some of this is going to be pertinent information to you. Some of it you can just have FYI, take home with you, and we'll just kind of go through it. If you have any questions about it at any point, just stop and ask as we go through it, and I'll try and get some of the highlights of it. It is front and back. So the back of the first page there at the top says sources and uses. That's showing you simply the creation of funds from the bond sale and where those dollars went. So this morning we sold a par amount of 9.795 bonds, $1 million worth of bonds. In doing that, in selling that amount, we were able to create a premium from that sale of 1.203 million for a total of 10.998 in total production. Down below, you can see how that 10.998 was split. Underwriter's discount includes all the costs and fees associated with the underwriting this morning. Cost of issuance is everything that we've done leading up to this point, including us as a financial advisor, and there's detail of that in the back, so we'll get to it. Deposit to your construction fund of $10.8 million as promised. And because we have to sell bonds at an even multiple of $5,000, there's usually a rounding amount that gets applied to take us up to that equal amount of $5,000. That rounding amount will come back to you and go into your INS account, your debt service account. So that'll come back. So you'll get the 10.8 million and the 2,800 that's shown there. So promised delivery. We'll talk about how that premium is created a little bit too. The next 2 pages, front and back, that's what I like to call the exploded version of your debt service. So as you know, we talked about this is a semi-annual payment. One of the payments is interest only. The other payment throughout the year is principal and the remaining amount of interest. This payment schedule right here is showing you that very thing. Over on the left, you can see the semi-annual dates, 2/15/22, 8/15/22, 2/15/23, 8/15/23, on down the page, showing you your semi-annual payments. As you look to the right, you can see that on 2/15/2022, you will have an interest-only payment, $279,465. That'll come off your collections. On 8/15/2022, you will pay the remaining principal there, and the interest amount shown in the column. And then you can see over on the very far right, fiscal total, that's showing you what the both payments for the year add up to. So it's kind of the exploded version. It's not something you need to look at all the time, but if you were ever at any point in the year where you said, oh, what's our upcoming bond payment? You could pull this out, look at the exact date over there on the left, and figure out exactly what that amount is for upcoming payment. The back of that page there takes you through the end of the payback schedule. And there's some statistics down there at the bottom of that page, but they're also on the next page we're headed to, and they're a little bit easier to see there. The next page here, page 4, debt service schedule, is the condensed version of what we just looked at. It's just showing it on an annual basis, right? So you can see there your principal amounts, your coupon for those bonds, and your interest associated with that, and then your total payment out to the right. And again, you can see in that total P&I column, based on wind farm value and depreciation, those payments are stepping down each year that you experience wind farm depreciation. So they keep going. When you get down to the 2035 year, you have a total payment of $548,350. And then just below that, it drops pretty significantly in annual payment. Those are years in the back end where we do not necessarily have a value amount from the wind farm. We know that they have to stay on the books for 25 years, but they are not showing us a value for those years in the back end. So I basically have just backed their value out. That would be a period in time where if there is still wind farm value around, which there will be, you'll have some excess collections there, and you can even further accelerate paying the bonds off more quickly. So that's why that debt service drops right in there, is because I had to assume that maybe if wind farm went to zero, but that doesn't happen. I have to kind of play it safe. So your total debt service schedule shown there. In the statistics below, you'll see in that middle block, there are some interest amounts, or there's some percentage amounts. Everybody take your pen and circle that second number down next to true interest cost, TIC.
I've got pins if anybody needs one.
1.71%. That is your overall interest rate on this 25-year financing is a 1.71%. And that is a dynamite rate. Rates just really cannot be much lower. I mean, you issued at a great time in the market, and you have that 1.71% to show for it. So that's an amazing number for a 25-year financing. If you think about a 30-year mortgage, I know my mortgage is like somewhere between 3.5 to 4. So this is an amazing number. That's great. If you kind of if you look at it this way, if you look over in that total P&I column at the bottom, that's your total payback, 12.995. You're receiving 10.8 million in delivery. So you're basically paying $2 million worth of interest on 10.8 million over 25 years. That's an amazing amount of low interest over the life of the bond there. So great payback, great interest rate. Okay, so the next page is the pricing summary. We'll talk about a couple of things here, and then it doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on what you're looking at for the future. It does have a few things in it. If you look at the two columns there that say coupon and yield. So on the very first page, we talked about selling 9.795 million worth of bonds and delivering 10.8 to you, right? And you're probably thinking, well, why didn't we just sell 10.8? What we have here is called a premium structure. So in that column that says coupon, it's showing all 3% interest rates, then down at the bottom, 2% interest rates. That's the coupon interest rate that an investor is getting for buying that maturity. So if you bought any one of those early maturities, you're getting a 3% interest rate of return on that. If you look over in the column that says price, and let's just look at year 2026, right above that first line there. That price is at 114.175. That's per 100. So when you bought bonds in that maturity, you paid 114 over 100 for them, meaning $14 worth of premium, right? That premium that was created because we can sell that maturity at a little bit better than 100 over 100 is what created the remaining amount to take you up to 10.8 and cover cost of issuance. It's called a premium structure, premium bond sale. And basically what it's saying is we put coupons on here to give us a tiny bit of premium from an investor standpoint, so they're willing to pay a little bit more for it. Then we don't have to sell as much par bonds. We don't have to sell $10.8 million worth of bonds. What that does is it keeps your fees down. It's a lesser fee to sell 9.75 than it is to sell 10.8. There's some inherent advantages to having a lesser par amount and then creating premium. For you guys, you're getting the 10.8. You're paying it back on the exact same schedule you would whether we sold par bonds or not. That premium structure creates premium to cover your cost of issuance. So if we'd have sold just 10.8 par bonds and delivered it to you, then the cost of issuance would have come out of that 10.8 and you wouldn't have had it for construction. So there's a lot of advantages to setting up a premium structure. I just kind of wanted to clarify that in case you were wondering. Let's look at the column there that says call date. So as it stands, the debt service schedule you looked at, and this is based on the wind farm schedule and your current revenue, your current assessed value, this debt service that we've created should be just slightly below, about 40 or 50,000 a year below what your 28.5 cents is going to produce, right? We did that for a few reasons. Number one, you haven't had a bond in a long time, so I wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of a cushion after your first collection period going into the second payment to make sure you had some there. From that point going forward, we had talked about using any additional money under the 28.5 cents to further pay bonds down early, make them payable more quickly. And that's the intent there. The other thing is there there are districts out there that sometimes experience fluctuations in value, whether it's due to wind, local value, whatever. If in any one year you experience a fluctuation in value, you're going to have about $40,000 to $50,000 worth of cushion in that year in case your value changes some before you actually are short of your collection. So it's a great thing. That money does not get wasted. It's not extra money. It's going to go towards paying these off more quickly. It's actually going to benefit you and allow you to pay less interest. And if you look at that column that says call date, I'll show you how. If we start at the bottom, and you can see that very last maturity, 8/15/2045 across the page there, it has $325,000 of principal in it, right? And that call date column says 2/15/2023. That one maturity, $325K, is callable on 2/15/2023, which is right after you make your second round of collections this next year, right? 2023. You're going to collect on 2/15/2024 and make an interest-only payment, or 2022, and then 2/15/2023, those come callable. At that point, you have the opportunity to start paying that $325,000 off early. Now, at that point, based on your excess collections, 40 or 50,000, you should have about 80 to 100,000 of extra dollars in the account that will go towards that par amount right then. The way I kind of tried to set it up is a little bit staggered so that you're going to pay on that one until it's gone. So that'll be the 2023 collection, the 24 collection, the 25 collection. Then if you look in the call date column right above that, that next one says 8/15/2026. In 2026, that second maturity comes callable to be paid early. So I've staggered it. So I think like as you're paying these collections towards principal, as soon as you get that last one paid off, you turn around and boom, it's 2026. The next one comes callable and you start paying towards that one. And that's going to go through 26, 27, 28. And then if you look at the next maturity up and all the ones above that, 8/15/2029, they become callable. So you immediately start taking revenue and putting it towards all the rest of them as you want. So I've created some extra revenue each year for you under your 28.5 cents and left you some flexibility, an avenue to spend that revenue to reduce principal early. And that will chip away at your overall interest. So it's just kind of a progressive deal where each year you'll have some excess and you may say, okay, we're going to hold 20 or 25,000 in the INS account and everything else over that is going to go towards early reduction of principal. And it's set up so you can do that. So we talked a little bit about how in that back end, when your debt service drops, then you're going to have a little bit more extra than you did when we started. And that just further accelerates that process of paying it off more quickly. To your point, it's going to get faster and faster. And I think the way this is set up and the way that you're currently collecting revenue, you should have no problem taking a 25-year note and shrinking it down to about 20. I think so throughout the life. If you wound up potentially getting another phase of wind or had another large value contributor that came to town that increased the amount of value that you had in your collection, then you could even further accelerate that. So
With this accelerator, we have to stay at 28.5 cents to make this work, or like year 10, we can drop to 25, or?
To create the excess that I'm showing, I've used 28.5 cents as the benchmark. I think to cover this debt service, it's about 26 to 26.5 pennies to cover it right on the nose. At any point in the future, you can reduce your tax rate. I would request that we not do that till at least 2/15/2023. That way you've gotten 2 collections under your belt and you're staring down that first maturity coming callable saying, okay, this is how this is supposed to work. Do we want to keep doing this, right? If at some point in the future you get a ton of extra value and you decide not to do a bond and you really only need like 15 cents because you've got so much value, you could potentially lower your tax rate down. But I think from a payback standpoint, and again, you made the point is this is a really low interest rate, so we don't have to just pay it off tomorrow. I think in the early years, it would benefit you to stay at 28.5 and create some extra revenue there. And then if you get to a point where you say, look, we're happy with this schedule, we've got some of it knocked off already, and we're in a good place, then you can lower your tax rate back down at any point.
And when you say revenue, it's to use to pay down. So
That's
people
it.
that understand it's
Yep.
revenue, it's going towards the end of payment.
Right.
So
It's INS revenue, so it can only go towards bonds. It's not like you can take it and put it somewhere else. So if you're producing it, it goes into your INS account. It goes directly towards this payment. So no M&O stuff or anything like that. So
No, what I'm saying is this is structured to stay at that rate for 25 years. Maybe we pay it off at 20, holding that rate if everything stays flat the way it is.
if
Or
you
we
stay
look
at
at it in like 10 years, we may have an option then.
If you stay at 28.5 cents, it's not structured to keep you at 28.5 cents. It's structured based on 28.5, and that 28.5 is producing about 40 or 50,000 of excess. So even as of day one, you could potentially adjust your tax rate if you wanted to. I think the prudent thing is to keep that 28.5 and to use that extra money for interest. But to your point, instead of gathering all that up towards year 10, we've got a few shorter call options in here to take advantage of. And once you kind of get through that first call setting and say, okay, yeah, we're going to pay that last year off. If that's not really what you like, then we can look at each debt service each year, look at your debt service and say, okay, here's what our value is. Here's what our payment is. Divide by 100. What's the tax rate that we need? And you can set your tax rate right on top of it if you want. But this won't force you to 28.5 cents. I just kind of created a schedule that fits under 28.5 cents. So that leeway, you have the freedom to take that up as you see fit.
Mr. Blackburn?
Yes.
And is it my understanding that you're saying based upon your schedule that you have here, and that's assuming that there is no value on the wind farm as of 2036, is that right? Isn't that what you said? That's why the drop from 455,000. Am I right? Is that?
Yep. Okay. Flip back one page to that condensed debt service schedule. You can see between 2035 and 2036, debt service goes from about 548 a year to about 329 a year.
Right. So assuming that the wind farm, everything, and they do have a value on the account, which you say,
I know they will.
Then that will further accelerate even more than the 20
to continue to pay down early. And I think that's the point of keeping the 28.5 cents is you're going to get out there to a point where it's like, man, we had money above and beyond debt service of 150,000 this year. Not that you intended to collect extra. That 150,000 is going directly towards principal reduction. And each time you knock 150,000 of principal out of the back end of that thing, it adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest savings over the life. So every time you do that, I mean, when you talk about being responsible with taxpayer money, does that mean getting them a low interest rate, or does that mean paying it off early? Does that mean lowering the tax rate to 28 cents or keeping 28.5 and shrinking the thing down? And that's y'all's decision when you get in here and me. But
look at the schedule, reading the last question. I mean, you're pretty well going to stay on it for 10 years regardless. After year 10, if you banked up enough to begin with the interest, it looks like you could lower it, save your taxpayer some, and still have enough cushion to go forward.
sure. And even in that first 10 years, you'll have the availability to put money towards those last two maturities. After that is when the rest of it comes callable and you can really start throwing at the whole thing instead of just those two maturities. So yes. And I expect that that's kind of, that's right after that kind of drop in debt service. I mean, you're looking at it going, okay, well, our debt service decreased. Our wind value is still there. It didn't go to zero. It's not what it was at the beginning, but it didn't go to zero. And now we have this slug of cash that's coming in at 28.5 cents that now you're saying, okay, boom, boom, boom. So every year, instead of every year making a partial pay down, could go where every year you're making a full payoff. Like this year, we paid this year and the last year totally. So it's going to accelerate that ability to do that. And it's just done by a simple resolution, board resolution every year to redeem. So it's, it's like any other resolution you do. It comes out here, we pencil an amount in that we think you're going to have an excess. You guys say we vote to redeem bonds early and 150,000, and then it happens. Jason makes the transfer just like he does with your bond payment. Go straight to the paying agent and they knock it out for you. So,
And then assuming, within the 10 to 15 years that they have to go in and basically refurbish some of those units, they go back up to full or almost full value.
that'd be cool. Yeah, and they do that at times. So you may not see just a straight decrease in values. There may be some fluctuation there. There may be some years where it goes back up. That would obviously produce more revenue for you and further accelerate that process of paying it all off. So. Dinosaurs. All right. Okay, let's see here. Okay, like page 6, page 7, and page 8. And really 9 and 10 as well are all computations that are made for the Attorney General's office. We're basically having to prove an arbitrage yield on your bonds. It does not represent any amount of true debt service like what we were looking at. So those pages are not unusable. They just, unless you're looking at it from an AG perspective, they don't make a ton of sense. So those are in there for your benefit, but we're not going to cover them. Page 12, detailed underwriter's discount. So what you have here is underwriting expenses. Underwriter's counsel, the attorney that represented the seller this morning, and some of the expenses that they go through to go to market this morning. That totals that $14,978. Actually, I'm sorry. Go back one page to page 11, just flip it over. Sorry. This is the summary of the underwriter's expenses. Down at the bottom, you see 3 line items: management fee, average takedown, and underwriter's expense. The management fee is the fee that is charged per bond sold this morning to manage the deal from the underwriter at $97.95. Average takedown is the per price charge for coordinating their efforts there, the $46.81, and the total underwriter's expenses is the $14,978.
What does that takedown mean?
You can see it right above there in that column, total takedown. It's basically the amount of fee per bond to sell those bonds. And it totals up to that $46.81. So when they sell on the market, their desk charges a fee per maturity that they sell and distribute to other investors. It's called the total takedown, and it's just shown in that column. It's based on, if you look in the column that just says, like, has a plus sign and says takedown, it's 0.125% of that bond, 0.25% of the other, 0.25% of the other. So it goes down, and again, it's 0.25%. So it's 0.0025 of that bond amount is what they charge for a short maturity, and it gets a little bit bigger as those maturities get longer. So it basically is just the underwriter's fee. And then they have expenses of $14,978, and they have a management fee for being a sole managed underwriter. So if you flip over the expenses, $14,978 are outlined there. All right. So all of this is the stuff that's covered above and beyond your 10.8. Remember, we were talking about how the premium goes to cover the expenses. So you can see their detailed expenses there. Not a terrible amount of expenses for them. If you flip to the back page, you're looking at cost of issuance. And cost of issuance is basically the fees for everything that we've done to get to this point today. So our fee is in there, an expense line item for us, which is basically like travel and meals and stuff like that. Bond counsel, you have a very capable counsel. You can see their fee there. They have a line item for expenses. They do a lot of this documentation. Their expense line item is a little higher. The Attorney General fee, so you have to have a bond reviewed by the AG's office. That fee is shown there. Permanent school fund insurance through the state, PSF insurance. Standard application fee is that $1,500 shown there. Rating agency fee, we were rated by Standard & Poor's rating agency. Jason and I went through several questions and rating calls with them to get our bond rating of an A. You can see that fee shown there. Preliminary official statement prep fee. So the document that has been circled around to everybody, all the councils, it's basically the issuing document for the bond sale, like a 75-page document that gets updated and corrected. We pay a counsel to prepare that. That's that fee there. When you're done preparing it, as the sale takes place, you have to post it publicly and get it printed. That's usually around that $1,500 mark. So we put $1,500 in there.
You just send it to us, we can run it off for you and send you that.
Man, I'm going to send you a copy of it from the printer. Your paying agent. So every year, instead of you trying to pay all the bondholders that purchased your bond this morning, you send it to one guy at UMB Bank, your payment, and he disperses it to all the bondholders. So you pay him $500 a year to do that, and it's well worth it instead of trying to write all those checks. And that bottom amount is miscellaneous. It never fails that when we get into a bond sale or a closing, there's a miscellaneous amount of expense.
I'm change my name to that.
That shows that amount. So the way this works is this is a full accounting of what we think, and at this point are fairly sure that fees are going to be. That miscellaneous amount, if we don't dig into that at all, it comes back to you. So at closing next month on the 25th, when this thing funds and hits your account, not too long after that, Jason will receive a spreadsheet, and over here, it'll show the exact amount of fee that was assessed. It'll show the difference, and if it's a positive difference, then we're going to send that back to you. There's no, oh, there was an overage, we hang on to it. We account to you for every dollar in fee, and if there's anything above that, we send it back. So there's a chance you'll get, and usually it's about $1,000, $1,200, somewhere in there. It's usually the miscellaneous amount, and maybe a couple other ones on here that were $100 or so off. So that'll happen. But that's kind of a detailed accounting of all those fees. And really, if you go back to the back of the first page where it shows sources and uses, those two totals right there under uses of funds, that's what we just covered. Total underwriter's discount, 65, 455. That was their 40 and 14 and 9. That kind of covers their end. Cost of issuance was the total that we just showed on the back. Year 10.8 and the rounding amount. So it's all covered there in the bond sale. None of it's out of pocket. None of it comes out of district funds or anything like that. And we're still delivering you the full 10.8. We can't deliver you any more than 10.8 because that's what went in the document when the bond was called. So we're giving you that full amount, and we created a little bit to cover cost of issuance. So. This is a great sale. Our underwriting group did a great job this morning. I was telling you earlier that they beat the market. They beat all the other comparable sales that are out there. They crushed it. They got us a great interest rate this morning. And I think the way that we set your bonds up to produce some excess every year is really going to help you guys, especially in these first few years with making decisions as to how you want to go forward. But it's going to allow you that option at all times, starting in 2023, to start to reduce principal early. And you can keep doing that all the way throughout the structure until it's gone. Or at some point, you may make an adjustment. Say, hey, we're going to bring the tax rate down some or something like that. So totally up to you. Make that decision each year. But, any questions about the bond sale or anything like that? At this point, we finalize all the docs. We're going to sign some docs tonight. Those go back to the law firm. They recheck it for spelling errors and all kinds of stuff. They're going to submit it to the Attorney General's office. The AG usually asks for 3 weeks to review bond deals. So we set up the closing about 3 weeks later. So you're going to be closing on February 25th. And that's the day that it'll release. The underwriter will send funds to you, the 10.8 and the rounding amount. They'll send us the cost of issuance, and we'll pay the attorneys, the AG's office, all that stuff that's listed there. We take care of all those folks. And the 65 for underwriter's discount, they keep at the transfer. So they send us what we need to make us whole, and they hang on to their part. That'll happen on the 25th.
That's when they send it to us?
Yes, send it to everybody. It's when the whole thing funds, yep.
So y'all's comes out of that, or then we pay y'all?
So on that page, sources and uses, the 10.8 comes to you. The 130 goes to us, and then we pay your attorneys, we pay the AG's office, we pay all that stuff. And then the 65, 455, that stays in the underwriter's account as their fee for the sale. So it funds on that day, and everybody's wire is dispersed to them.
That's when that miscellaneous come in.
That's right. You guys don't be coming up with any miscellaneous fees between now and then. I want to send that money back.
I'm gonna change my name to miscellaneous.
All right, guys. Well, if there aren't any questions, then we do have some docs to sign. We'll need board president, board secretary, and superintendent. And then on one of them, we'll need our notary. And if you want to go ahead and take a break, I'll sit down there right in front of you and pass them all through. You guys can get them signed. And then I'll come sit down and stamp seal them all. Do we need? Oh, well, it would help if you voted on it. Yeah. That's a crucial part, yes.
Assuming.
What do y'all think?
Get your finger stretched out.
Not really.
I told Dakota to get it. I already told him to start stretching.
I've been.
Get that old corporate tunnel away from that stuff, boy. They gonna have to wait for that miscellaneous.
We need to make this motion.
You got to read it as it's on there. Yep, that makes the attorneys
Make a
happy.
motion, let's do it as.
Yep, makes the attorney smile.
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the order authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of Roby Consolidated Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2021, and provisions related thereto and containing other matters related thereto.
I'll authorizing the amount, interest rates, price, redemption, all that.
Skip the line. I don't have that.
You don't have,
Close enough.
It ends at this motion made.
tell you what, if you make the motion, I'll refurbish it. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second
Stormy has made this motion, Dakota has seconded. We'll reread the motion. That the motion is the Board of Trustees adopt the order authorizing the issue, sale, and delivery of Roby Consolidated Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2021, authorizing the amount, the interest rates, price, provision, terms thereof, and certain other procedural provisions related thereto, and containing other matters related thereto. The motion is made by Stormy and seconded by Dakota. Any discussion, thoughts?
Right.
We ain't gonna be able to hear Kevin. We muted him.
No, he's there. He has it. There you go.
All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passed 7-0.
Guys, I'm gonna call it 6:35. I gotta give them the time.
Yes.
So, 6:35.
Hey, Kevin, we're going to take about 15 minutes. We're going to take about 15 minutes to sign all the documents.
Sounds good. I'll check on kids then.
Okay.
That one, go get the blue one out here.
Yes.
Watch out, I'll walk off.
Two of them in this.
And he was our absent board member, right? And he's here. Let's say, everybody's here, right?
Yes, everybody, yes, everybody is here. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
This bad boy.
Yep, and they're not in order, so just know that. And then, the notary, do you just want to check, I mean, her room is right next door. Do you want to do all the stamping and stuff in there with her?
Sure, yeah, I'll come over there and, as long as you're, yeah, I'm notarizing over there. Okay, so authorized officer.
Don't think the kids are bothering us. Okay.
So I thought if Major would come in, I said, Major, it's fine that he came in here, but I told him, you can't leave your sister alone. That's the one thing I have that he can't get yet, is don't leave her.
Okay, so guys, each one of these is gonna have several copies of the page.
Five.
Just sign each copy and pass it. This one is just authorized official, which can be board president. Yours should say, secretary.
They are.
Well, this is.
That's from Raymond James.
This is yours.
Okay.
And it'll be all five of those.
Authorized official.
Don't send any extra my way if you don't.
Okay, so the yellow ones right there say secretary next to them. Looks like you're gonna be yellow and the color scheme is signing junk.
There's one of them different, in case that comes back, he cannot pick it up.
That one is going to be the callable date of the 25th. That's going to be the document, right? Is that the February 25th, 2021? That's the call, that's the.
It is signed.
Yeah, you'll do.
Yeah, do your title, board president, and your name, or I'm sorry.
So you'll
Your
sign.
signature, your name, and your title.
Yes, correct, yes.
You getting off easy.
So you're, this is for.
Okay, is that done?
This one,
Okay.
This has two sets of signature pages, so make sure you get to the back. And look, I think you're green on that one, so it
Is that one done?
should be,
Yeah, I'll put all done over here.
Stick it in.
PREZ good enough? Better watch it, I'm not putting E after president.
El Presidente. Where is her? This is hers. Notary page right here. Test secretary.
Do what?
This one's for you, Mr. Carter.
Oh, here's a blue pen, there you go.
I got my hand right in the grease with y'all.
The board or my thing jumped off.
That's okay. Just keep on keeping on, the other secretary.
Already done one with this like that.
Yep.
A lot of
I
them.
just give them to you, yeah.
Hang on. This one, there you
So when do we get to invest in those rubber stamps?
go. These would not allow you to do rubber
I'm
stamping.
sure you're gonna think right after we get the wet ball.
Right. There, and I'll take that. Okay.
And you're on there. Oh, you know what? Did you get the last one that he signed too?
No, I haven't
That's
done
okay.
it. I haven't done anything that he has done.
Okay, so this is maybe the first one we're doing.
This one's yours, yeah.
I'm assuming y'all know you got Danny's last name.
It's circled right here on this
Yes.
front one, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, if there are any verbal faux pas in these docs, they're gonna go back for review. They're gonna go back through them again because they have to send them to the AG's office. And when you send stuff to the AG's office with a typo as a law firm, they're like, what the hell are you doing?
Mhm.
Yeah, they call you and they go, are you sure you guys are lawyers?
First time?
Yeah, that's right.
First,
I remember my first beer. Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
is it green on that one, Chris?
See if I can. Yep, stack those up. And
You want to take those pages?
No, no. I think so anyway, so we're good.
Yeah, that's gonna go to him as well. It's
This
going
one
here in
here.
a second, yep. So it was this one.
Those are his.
Okay, I'm gonna call the doctor for nothing.
They call me doctor for nothing. I damn sure didn't.
She was telling me Oldfield hands telling me that, so what do you do?
They don't know.
This one.
Well, if they tell you when they get a problem.
Oh, I bet they do.
So I'm yelling this stuff.
Yes.
So,
Yep. Get both of them. That one's for him and this one's for him.
And you have the notary one?
Ask me tough questions, Jason. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
I hope y'all gave me the most important documents first because the signature's getting a little faded.
Get a little doctory there.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on this one. The blue one, I think, is notary, so just make sure you don't sign any blue ones. Just make sure you're signing the secretary one. Who did not sign this? I bet it's you. It's just
there you go.
Hey, Chris, you're backing up here. We got a little train wreck over here.
Slow down, man. Slow down.
What's that?
Those are his stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and all the rest of them are over here. You ready
Is
for
there
this?
one that says bond, either there's one that says bond purchase agreement or
No,
is the signature
that-
page for the bond purchase agreement?
No, it's this one right here. It's that one. That one's the one because they didn't put the deal, but it's the one that says 22 on it.
Okay. I'm gonna put that on top because I'm gonna send them.
Okay, are you ready for the ones that are
On
completed?
2 days.
Now that I've got
I
all-
usually, yep, I'll turn them upside down right there and then I'm gonna take that stack with me here in just a second, so. Put that one in there too.
Some sort of normal. Anyway,
Okay. This is my notary.
One of them,
Green.
I'm telling you green, I'm telling you yellow. Y'all can't make it that much.
This would be the law firm.
Watch this hand over here. Pulling rabbits with this one.
You don't know what I'm talking about.
It's better than death, I promise.
I wonder if our goats had anything to do with the great rate today.
I think the goats played a pretty crucial role.
We had our calls with the rating company and everything else, and they were asking questions like, I mean, all I could think of is these ritzy people asking, what about Roby? What's in Roby? All this other stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, we have some houses that had goats in the front yard and stuff like that. And they all just kind of got silent.
In the local economy discussion, they said, well, what's the local economy like? And he goes, well, we got a lot of yards with goats in the front. So then at the end, I said, well, they got a lot more yards with more goats than now. Economy's going up. The guys on the rating call had a kick. They had a good time with it.
That might have been their first time with that one.
Oh, man.
Well, just the way that they asked them the questions, it was like, you don't know where
You have no
we
idea.
are.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't tell them about the lotto luck here in Roby.
That's why he tells us about it.
Yeah.
He knows.
They won't send the money.
I don't think there's a whole lot of that left.
There it is. Just find it.
You still running?
Not much. I hadn't for a long time, and I
So you'll take these in there and everything, and then
This one, and I'll take a picture of that one, and I'm gonna stamp seal everything.
I
and then
couldn't
check
take it.
I'm going through everything. I may have to come back and get a.
Not in good shape anyway, everything went to breaking down.
Well, it may not have played out exactly how I said, but it got pretty close, right? When you guys first met me, I bet you.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Here we are. It happened.
Really?
I'll bet. I just don't do it in minutes because I gotta use you guys as a reference.
He didn't tell you about the chickens at the back door.
Yeah.
I wanted a good rating.
You know,
I was afraid of taking too much of the chicken and the goat stuff.
we had chickens at one point. I know why they call them fowl now because that is a nasty, just raise them for eggs is gross.
Yeah. We got
All right, so is that everything?
All you gotta do is go to the commercial barn.
Oh, man, let that read.
Every day.
So you're doing all
All
this
day,
stuff?
take the work done.
How many,
we got my chicken coop. It's got chicken or some wire on the bottom, keep snakes
the way
and
they,
stuff.
way that they structure that.
Mhm.
Four wheelbarrow
Four
loads.
companies that own
Chicken
all the-
breast out of there. I mean,
all you can do
this
is
nasty.
provide water.
Mix it in garbage.
Thirsty water.
I set it out there where I can get to it later. and take
They
it back.
do it all for you?
Not a lot.
No, you're.
Yeah.
Oh,
As long as you
Yeah,
have a little
yeah.
standard like that. it's not like
Cause you have to like get down out
chickens,
there, break it down, just scoop it up.
Make it where it has a little value, just spread it out.
collecting eggs and doing all that.
When
Just raising for meat.
Oh,
they get to that level, they can come up.
Economy,
I said
figure out
something,
where
they
they
had how much
have.
profit
When
you
they lay
made
it,
out of the growth of that deal.
They got
They
a
set it that way because overall, they're coming at expense of doing
that
that.
trough, they can,
Right.
they just pick it up.
Really? Well, I've got mine in boxes you can open up from the outside.
Call them Pilgrim's
You know,
Pride
with the
before
picture
too
right
long.
there.
Kind of decent.
Yeah.
You just need
I
a
just don't have
barn,
one
a big piece of land with.
Roll it down to it.
When they start talking about what those bills make, then it doesn't go up for some reason.
Find something that way, you know, roll down in a long.
Huh.
Most of them boats
Like
are
it's,
about
they
40
fall in
grand.
that little thing, they go daily to collect them.
And the
Can't
wife
do
is-
it, look at this, crash on each other.
Hell, I don't even
It
like
makes a
eggs.
nice salary, I'll bet.
That's when we first got chickens just for my kids.
But
We had ones that had like fuzzy heads and all kinds of different stuff.
They go about
I got somebody giving a goose away, they wanna give their goose away, they live in town.
That's a big old boy.
Her maid
Big
said,
old
well,
eggs.
goose eggs, she would give me a bunch too, collect them.
To meet their needs.
This way, they got me about
Cash in my savings account, that point, I probably.
Mom and dad don't have some.
I'm telling
Had
you.
duck eggs too.
That goes to the moon, that would be,
They're mean, God,
Yeah.
It's Tyson's work.
They're one of them that's got the great big.
this is a big old
You're
complete
not gonna be
swan.
independent.
Yeah.
Like a goose swan, big old.
Wanna be independent, that sounds hard.
Gray, kind of black. Like a
Okay.
dog.
I would've never
Black
thought.
beak. Yeah, we had some of those when we were kids, and they were mean.
That one is male is mean, they're snapping. You know, there's a Mexican, you know, if you ever see them, they don't come out of the yard, but they're right there, I wrote into my housing authority right there. They're a gray house with white trim on the.
thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna go next door. I may have to stick my head back in here, but if I don't see you, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, you'll be seeing me again before too long, but
So you're gonna come back and help us with the debt service in a year or two, and factor some of that?
I'll come back whenever you invite me out, especially if there's a burger tied to it.
or a fee?
No, we only get paid when we have transactions. So if you want me back out, I'll come back out.
So
Just
you
don't
need
abuse it.
miscellaneous of it.
Yeah,
Thank you for your help.
you're very welcome. You're very
That's
welcome.
what he said. He said he'd come back.
I come back as long as there's a burger. I said, just speak well of me. That's all I ask.
All right, y'all.
Have a good one.
Miscellaneous of the house. I don't think miscellaneous. It's just like that old FICA from the day, my check from the bill for the state.
It's all good. It's all good.
FICA boy gave a lot of money. Should we take off the check?
Yeah, every check.
It's a score.
Sheriff 18. Towards the end of a couple of minutes left, the third.
Oh, now it's adjourned. It's adjourned now?
Hmm?
It's adjourned now?
Almost.
Where did it get started, Dave? What you talking
No, I mean,
It's there.
we're downhill now.
about? We got 3 more hours.
We made it through the first topic.
Oh, goodness. That ain't funny, Paul.
Action item A is done.
Kevin, can you hear us? Okay. I was
All right. We passed through that. Now we gotta do, it's down to B, consider possible approval of Raymond L. Goodson Jr. Conduct a topographic and improvement survey as presented.
Trustees, this is the same item as from the last board meeting. This survey is actually to do the entire district, the district lines, all the actual property. So from all the buildings, all the way around, all the way back up the side by the highway, all the way across. So the survey will be of all that. It's not just of the sites that we are potentially looking at, it's the entire. So that'll help the architects, and they'll help you guys with, the placement of, the ag shop, where would be some good locations, those types of things. And so I recommend that we approve the survey.
So last meeting, we didn't make a motion. We pushed this over.
That's correct. We tabled it till the next meeting. Yes, sir.
Anybody have any thoughts on this or?
Just giving you what they're gonna survey, the grounds.
This survey is what will do all the elevations, where all the utilities are, all that stuff. So that it would give the architects, they'll be able to take exactly what they have and throw it into their plans to make sure that there's no anything wrong with those. And if there is, they'll have to propose changes. And then, so that's, this is one thing that is necessary to move forward.
This is the same price.
It is exactly, yes, that thing has changed.
Everybody good with that? Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve Raymond L. Goodson Jr. Inc. to conduct a topographic improvement survey as presented.
Thank you, Kevin.
I second that.
Kevin's made the motion. I'll use Mark as a second. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now we move down to C, consider for approval of the public hearing.
It's,
Public hearing and regular meeting. Okay, that was right. That was the.
Yes, typically you always approve the meetings from the previous meeting, and so this is just doing that. So I just need a motion to approve and move forward unless you see any revisions necessary.
That is the Tapper meeting and our regular meeting
Yes, sir.
combined from last board meeting. Everybody read the minutes? Any questions?
I'll move to approve the minutes for the public hearing and regular meetings of the board held on January 18th to 21.
I won't overpower you.
Just keep the motions going.
All right. I'll second.
Made a motion, Stan, second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Can I ask a dumb question?
Mhm.
What if you don't, why do you wait till the next meeting to approve them? And what if you don't approve them? You go back and,
No, it's just, I mean, technically, it's just, all it's just stating is that you've looked at them, there's no incorrect errors. And then, of course, anytime that you look at one, even from 3 years ago, if there is a mistake, all you do is you come back, you amend it and say, yes. That's it.
All you're doing is tell them to file it, more or less. Next item is consider for possible approval of the board resolution temporarily amending the policy DEC local.
This is the same thing as what we talked about at the last meeting, the COVID relief absences expired for school districts December 31st. And so technically other private entities, everyone else can actually extend those all the way through the end of the end of their year. Schools were not eligible for that. Don't know why. So what we can do is, as a board, in the last meeting, you asked me to go ahead and draft the resolution, is to say that we will extend those benefits all the way through the end of the school year, ending on June 31st. So that means that if there's any COVID days that a teacher needs to use, they can use those throughout the rest of the year. It doesn't give them an extra. It doesn't give them another round of it. It's just extending the same day. So
What they had
correct. So if they had 8 days that they've already used and they get coronavirus again, then they can use 2 of those days that don't go towards any of their days, and then they can start using state and local days. So, and then it would just be at our price, which is exactly what we do anyway.
So they don't have to exhaust all of their days first before this moves.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and this is one time, or can they say,
No.
I got coronavirus, 14 days later, I got coronavirus again?
Well, I mean, it's only 10 days.
days.
It's only 10 days. I mean, that's it. I mean, and it's 10 for the whole year. So if they use 10 in the first and they get it again, you know, you at least had some relief of 10.
I believe I seen today the one that the federal took out, it was a tax incentive. Is what they done away with, so we couldn't get a tax incentive anyway.
And this is just a temporary amending of DEC. So we don't have to come back and say, take it out. It ends and expires in June. So once we hit that, this goes away, DEC local goes back to as it's normally. And I recommend that we approve this resolution.
I'll move to approve the board resolution temporarily amending policy DEC.
he's in a hurry when he's at home.
Kids coming.
All right, Kevin made a motion. Do I have a second? Kevin has seconded it. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? 7. All right, now we got a discussion item here for the schematic drawings for the bond of 2020.
Just so that you have it, it's not something that you have to discuss tonight. I just wanted to give you the opportunity, if you had any questions or anything else, that it's on the agenda for you to look at. I did receive an update to the schematic drawings based upon some of the feedback that we have received and looking at some of the drawings, especially for the kind of the way that some of the offices were and some things like that. And so those are actually attached to your documents. It's the 2021.01.27 update. That is the newest version of the schematic drawings. And what they did with that drawing is for just schematic purposes, they have left the ag shop where it originally was in the plans of out there in that grass area. And so when you start looking at that, you'll notice that classroom and all of that is moved around just a little bit. And so look at that. If you want me to go over with that tonight, we certainly can. If y'all want to review this and bring it back, I mean, I don't want to, take any more time if you don't want to tonight, but I mean, we can certainly go through it if you would like to.
What is our timeline? What are we looking at? Do we get this laid out and set, or do we have?
It's one of those things that the quicker that we can come to a determination of where things are going to be, then that we can finalize the exact placement, everything, and then the construction company comes in and starts looking at, okay, with this design here, we're going to need electric outlets here, here, and here. This is what this is going to cost. Then they'll build the bid proposals. And then once they have that, we have everything like we want it. Then we'll take that out to the bids. And then at that point, bidders bid, they bring them to you, so that the longer we expand this out, it does extend some. But now the timeline that's currently set on, we're right in line with where we are. So it's not like we're way behind, we're not ahead, we're just kind of in that first phase. So it's not like there's a hurry up and, we have to get going or we're never going to get this done. So,
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, I know we're in the first phase, but I know we've got time for architects got to do their design.
Mhm.
Engineers got to lay out what you're talking about. Then it goes out for bids, come back approvals. After they let bids, everything's done. Then when does construction start? What's that length of time?
September. Right now, we're set at September is when actually they would do things on the ground, is what we're currently looking at. So that would mean that we're approving bids in July, August-ish. Again, it's based upon how fast then things go, but then technically things would begin to start moving somewhere between August into September, October. Isn't that correct? Missy, that's
if that'll be on the ag shop.
That would be, so essentially what will happen is that all of this will go out. And once we have that, then Gallagher will come in and say, okay, this is the schedule of how everything can work. We can have all subcontractors working here, and here. We can do this in this order. And they try to work around the school district as to how they can run everything. So you're going to have a better understanding of what's going to go up first. Once we kind of know where everything is going to be at, because then we'll actually have Gallagher come in and they will actually have a detailed timeline of exactly when things are going to begin. A lot of it's kind of conceptual at this point in time until we can kind of get the basics.
The reason I said about the ag shop, if it was standing alone, I figured they was going to start construction on it. But if it was moved to some other place we're looking at or whatnot, that would change our timeline.
From my understanding is Gallagher has been on the phone call with us every time we've been with the architecture firm, and irregardless of the location that we placed it, there was no concerns as to the timeline. So there's no major issues as to the timeline of that building, because they were asked that specific question, is there any considerations? And they said, no, there's not, especially with that type of facility. So you're not looking at any major, delays if you put it here or not here or anything like that. But once we have a little bit more of now, when we get the topographic survey back, then they may come back and say, okay, you may have a delay now because we're looking at this, this, and this. So we'll know a little bit more on timeline once they get that survey done. And I kind of gave, I kind of let WRA know that we're in the process of getting the survey looked at and approved, and hopefully we'd get it done tonight. And so they've already verbally gotten with the company to kind of say, it's coming. Let's get it on there. And so they're working to try to approve that as fast as possible. So to get that done so that we can immediately move into the next part.
You want to look at any of this now, or you want to wait till another meeting, or?
I just didn't want to waste anybody. If y'all wanted some time to digest it, certainly, but if you want to go over some of the things, we certainly can.
I think the big question is the ag shop. Is that correct?
That has been one of the bigger concerns. Most of the other drawings, the only thing that really has changed is on the new classroom addition. We've moved the nursing facility to midway in between the two classrooms. So we'll have 2 classrooms nursing, 2 classrooms. And the reason why is we can actually build a covered walkway where the workroom is now, so that, just like we talked about, if we have an elementary student that is sick, they essentially go out straight into the nurse's office across the way, as opposed to coming through that other wing. And so it would make
centralized nursing.
Yes. So that was one concern, was just centralizing that. So that allowed us the opportunity to make it to where, we can get someone there quicker. And really, honestly, we're looking where the nurse's office is now versus where it's going to be. It's actually very comparable. So they're not that far away from the nurses.
So you're going to have to put bathrooms and stuff there for the nurse's station?
Is that there's one? I believe there's one actually in the nurse's facility. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's actually a hallway that comes into that. So even that you come from the workroom, you go across the covered walkway, which is not enclosed. It's underneath, just like what our walkways are now. But you come into a hallway. You don't come directly into the nurse's office. So it's not like you just swing into the nurse's office. So you do have a hallway to make that transition a little bit quicker. I know that was a concern, so we tried to address that.
Well, doing that, does it take the dual roles away from your nurse as far as being secretary or librarian or something else?
We are going to have to redo some of that. So again, it's one of those situations. It's not necessarily that duty may change to something different, but we'll have to kind of look at some of the differences in that.
Right. What I'm saying is, you move her over, it's going to be pretty well sole duty.
Well,
if she was over here in front or over there in front, she could have double duties.
Right. Well, I guess she'll have additional duties. It just may not be library. So, in other words, there will be other things that, it's not just turning into a sole.
Food service administration or other things that could be done from her office, but still a combined role.
Yeah. It would just not be that specific role.
You want to digest some more of this over a little more time?
Get some time to.
Okay.
And you can always send me emails with questions or call or text me if there's anything that we can do to provide you a little bit more information on that. And then what we'll do is we'll plan on at the February meeting, which is in a couple of weeks anyways, then I can have a better presentation at that point in time to maybe provide to you all and also to the public. We'll do it we'll throw it up on the screen for everybody to see. Does that sound like a plan for everybody?
As far as for the ag shop, one of the schematics, I see 3 options on there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty much where we're at? That's our options, or?
Where did you see that? There is 3 options. Essentially, is the tennis court area there, or on the other side in some form or fashion where the
it goes all the way to get to the bus barn.
Well, either that way or turn sideways, or in where it currently was during the bond proposal, which is in that grassy area that is just right there.
44.
And that's with no demo of that there.
Correct. Yes, that is correct. And so that's essentially the 3. Now, you all can change that if you want to, but as of now, they just for schematic design wanted to stick it in one location, get everything the way that we need it, and then if it changes, then we know what we want. They can go in and fix it to the way you want it.
Back of that shop there, to me, be the easiest access to your utilities and not being altered, have to worry about any other utility stuff. Be the easiest access anyway.
You're talking about connected to the actual.
To the back of that shop where it could be a work, whatever, connect to the ag shop to that north wall.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like we talked about when we went in there.
Yeah. The concern with that, and extending into the parking lot, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. That was, well, one of the biggest concerns from that was there was concerns about parking. Was your.
Like I said, you could utilize that parking over there where that was supposed to be projected to be at one point or another.
Which is where?
That we're behind. It's on the north side of the bus barn.
That corner area.
Where the grass is at?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you are also putting students further back from the buildings. So that was a concern that was brought up.
Well,
You talking about using it for parking or using it for ag shop?
Parking.
Yeah.
You're just gonna park. You're not allowed to go back there anyway. It's not that you're gonna be allowed to go all the way to the parking lot to get, when you go to school, you're in school.
You're talking about using that over
You
the
leave,
parking
it's
lot,
Yeah.
the ag shop over here.
No, I'm just saying that was the concern of parents and of others is that you're essentially, you're lengthening your parking lot. So some students are going to have to be further out from the actual facility. So when it's raining, when it's snow, when it's cold, those types of things, some people are going to be further away from the building. So that was the only concern with that one.
Yeah, that's.
Other question is with that old tennis court, if we don't ever utilize that, what was the plans for it? So if we don't put the ag shop there, what's our plans for that spot? Is there any plans? Or just leaving it that nice court?
Well, there's no planned usage of it, But once we know where everything is going to be, then we can start looking at what we can use those for. It's just one of those things we really, we don't want to go too far into what ifs until we kind of know exactly where we know the structures will be. And then at that point, start looking at, well, it could be used for this. It could be, that. So we really hadn't gone far into that.
We might put the net back up and start playing tennis again.
That's kind of what, I mean, is there ever any intention to doing anything like tennis or anything in that area ever in our future plans or thoughts?
Currently at this time, no.
It's dead space. At this time, is it still just considered a dead space?
Yes.
How long has it been since we had tennis?
The last I understood was it was Heath and Nick.
Well, Jordan.
Yeah, that was me. I played tennis my senior year,
Okay.
so I had to run track.
Jordan them had tennis and he was on 09, 08, 09.
Okay, so 08 or 09. There we go.
I think that's the last time we had a tennis team.
But you could have a possibility of something coming back. It's kind of.
No, well, that's anything.
They always had, if they didn't use it here, after school practice, they'd just go up to the Water Tower Hill, and they got a couple courts up there.
I've never heard they're
They're in bad shape right now.
bad shape.
At one point,
The city has the paint and all the stuff to redo all that. They got to do some do.
Well, I know that back then the school was maintaining it when we played up there.
Yeah.
Now that it's kind of went abroad. Yeah, not long back then, the school used to maintenance it. They used to actually maintenance.
Some of the things that I will tell you that I'm kind of, looking at is I know that, we're really trying to find partnerships with community organizations and the youth league and really utilizing our gym space and those types of things. And if we could bring in maybe some, I know that our baseball field and softball field are further away from our facility in a sense, but if we were to utilize some of our open spaces to maybe bring some batting cages or some of that are closer to where we can utilize them on campus versus go and then try to maybe even look at repurposing the field that is down at the far end of the practice field, trying to do something with it to where we can utilize it during the day as to opposed to always having to go out to the field for one of our teams. I mean, there's different things, plus we could utilize it for the youth. So, I mean, there are some things that we're looking at. I just don't really have anything at this point in time to say solidify. But I mean, that's the biggest thing I would love to do is to be able to find ways that we can, still get the skills taken care of on campus where we're not spending majority of our time moving away, use more of the skills and stuff, the actual playing and everything else down there. But at the same point, have some things here that we can utilize during the summertime, those types of things that we can utilize with our youth as well as our sports here. So those are some ideas. I just, I don't really have anything that I can just throw at you on a piece of paper saying that's what I want.
One thing I'd like to see is kind of as far as utilities. I mean, I like the ag shop going on the tennis court with that open area right there. Would be as far as where the utilities, I don't really like it out there by the bus barn, but how much would it cost us, if we put out there having to run all the utilities versus having it up close to the campus or, something over here on the side, because that can get expensive real quick. And
yes,
if it's right there at it versus running all the way out there.
Well, and I think that Gallagher will be able to price some of that stuff out once they get the topographic survey.
Right.
They'll be able to tell us. We can actually talk to them and say, okay, scenario 1, we put it out there. What are we looking at? Scenario 2, what are we putting at here? And at that point in time, then you can make the decision.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking is it's kind of hard to make a decision without knowing
Exactly.
their survey and where everything.
But really, if you'll look at the actual classroom, like the actual makeup of where everything is in the ag shop, that's more or less focused on that now. And then when we figure out where it goes, then if we know that we want a larger classroom space, we want the office here, then wherever it goes, they know what's our expectations. And I will tell you, every time that we talk to them, they make them, before we get done with the meeting, they have it done. So they have about 8 or 9 people on the call with us. So they're going through and looking at different options and everything else. And by the time we get done, they have it. So they're very responsive. So as soon as we know what we want, then once we know where we want it at, then at that point, everything starts to kind of play the deal. And then, of course, it's going to ultimately come down to, will you have everyone agree on where it goes? Maybe not. But at some point, a vote's going to have to be made. And then after that, we're going to have to just support that option and move forward. So, but we want to gather as much input as we possibly can towards that.
Well, it'd be good to have Gallagher and them at some point answer a lot of those questions.
Absolutely, yes.
Well, after you survey, you'll know.
Yes, and then what we'll do is we'll plan to have Gallagher and WRA here, whether it's in person or whether they're through Zoom, but they'll be at some of our meetings to start answering some of those questions for y'all. So we just felt like right now we're probably not at that stage to start doing that yet. And so we're probably looking at probably the February or March meeting, definitely in March.
So we could have a special meeting just to discuss some of those
Absolutely, yes,
things
sir.
with them.
You certainly
They got
could
too
do
much
that.
time.
Yes. I just need to give them leeway time to kind of make sure their schedules are clear.
Which would be following still after the survey is completed.
Yes, absolutely.
Because they give you a heads up on kind of a timeline. So.
Not at this point in time, because essentially they were not able to actually schedule anything. So tomorrow morning I'll be able to call and kind of know exactly what the timeline is.
I didn't know if he said, well, a couple of weeks, 30 days.
It's typically a couple of weeks. That's really what I'm guessing.
No, I guess we'll move on and I'll be studying on that. Give you some reading material when you can't sleep. Consider for possible approval of student outcome goals for Roby CISD.
Okay, on this document right here, if you look at the one that says board student outcomes, this is going to be one of the legal requirements that we have now through TEA is the board has a kind of some general goals to start with to start moving our kind of into more of being able to hold accountable, for not just what the bus colors are or what the logo is or anything like that, but you're really starting to look at academic goals for our students. And so for the first round of this, I propose the following outcomes. That our student achievements on state assessments and all students in domain 1, which would be our math, science, social studies, and English students grades 3 through English 2, will increase from 44% to 56% by June 2024. Our goal, of course, always is to get above that faster and quicker, but we need to have incremental goals that go across a time span of 4 years or longer. Student outcome goal 2, student achievement on the 3rd grade state assessment in reading at the meets performance level or above shall increase from 40% to 56% by June 2024. The same thing for 3rd grade state assessments in math meets performance levels shall increase from 32% to 47%. Now remember that there was the 3 goals, there were the 4 performance standards. You had the did not meet, you had approaches, you had meets, and you had masters. Remember, passing is approaches. These goals are for meet. Okay, so it's